officially, unofficially called the meeting to order. The governor is running a few minutes behind, so we're going to start with introductions, and when he joins us, we'll turn the meeting over to him. But first, I want to welcome everybody to the meeting this afternoon. Thank you for making the trip here, and also thank you to those of you who are joining us virtually as well. I'm Amy Shadwick, so if you didn't know me before last week, you certainly at least got to know my email and my email address. So thank you for your patience with all of the emails as we got this up and running. So again, I'm Amy Shadwick, and I'm the interim director for Recovery Ohio, and we're excited to have you here today for the meeting. What we'd like to do, and we're going to start off, we're going to skip the first agenda item, and we're going to go right into the second one of introductions, because this is all the first time that you all are together as foundation appointees. So we are going to jump right into introductions. The one thing that I will ask for folks who are regional appointments, if you know how your region's structured and came to the decision of your appointment, it would be really helpful if you could just speak for a minute or two about that. That would be helpful for two reasons. The first is there are a few regions who have not made their appointments yet, so they'll have the opportunity to hear how some of their colleagues structured their regions. And then the second reason, which is very important to our friends here from Benish, who you'll hear a lot from in a little bit, is it will be helpful for the tax exemption status. So the IRS has to know how the foundation made its appointments. So what I'm going to do is jump right in, and I'm just going to go well, I was going to go around the table, but what I'm going to do is just look at my list. And for those of you who are on with us virtually, you do have full capabilities to be able to unmic and talk, and also use your chat feature. I will be monitoring it and trying my best that if you do put something in the chat, that I will call on you, but please feel free to mic and be with us as in person as possible over the Teams link. So Chris Smitherman, if you don't mind, you're just first on my list. I'm just going to go by way of my list. Do you mind starting and introducing yourself?
I do not. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Christopher Smitherman. I'm the former vice mayor of the city of Cincinnati. I was appointed to this awesome committee, One Ohio, by the governor. I'm passionate about this issue of this opioid crisis that has paralyzed many of our communities. Obviously, we've seen a major impact on Black and brown people across the country, but we've seen that here in the city of Cincinnati and across Hamilton County. I'm honored to serve with so many distinguished people. Every time I've been in a meeting, I have learned so much from each of you, and I look forward to working with you sincerely on trying to make Ohio better and make our families whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next up on my list is Jane Portman.
Hi, everybody. I'm joining you by phone, and I'm so sorry I'm not able to be there in person to meet with everyone, but I do appreciate the opportunity from Governor DeWine to be a part of this One Ohio Foundation. Looking forward to the work we have ahead together, and looking forward to meeting you and when we all have our next meeting. I hope that comes together soon. I hope that I will bring to this effort a couple of different perspectives. One is as a longtime trustee and former board chair of our Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which, as you know, has been a leader in doing a lot of research in the pediatric field of neonatal abstinence syndrome. We're doing research, we're doing clinical work, and we've seen certainly the scourge that has been brought upon so many of our littlest patients and their families who are affected by the opioid issue over the years. I'd also say my second introduction to the opioid issue and the addiction issue has been through the partnership with my husband, Senator Rob Portman, who many of you have worked with on this issue through his 30 years of developing Community Foundation and other anti-drug efforts and treatment and recovery programs. So a lot of work lies ahead of us, and I look forward to the partnership. So thanks for including me today.
Thanks, Jane. And then Sheriff Tharp, is that you on the 937 number?
Hello, this is John Tharp.
Oh, okay. Could you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm John Tharp, the former sheriff of Lucas County and the organizer of the Lucas County DART unit, the Drug Abuse Response Team. And so it's nice to be with you today.
And then I'm going to move to Larry.
Hello, I'm Larry Kidd. I'm from Jackson, Ohio. Was a Governor DeWine appointee and really excited about serving on this board. If anybody is familiar with Jackson, they've had some serious opiate issues, prescription in particular, and it's been near and dear to my heart for years, and had a family member that was involved in some drug issues, so I'm looking forward to doing what we can to move the agenda forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Can we give Larry a shout out for helping us out in terms of trying to get an EIN for the entity? I just want to say personally, thank you. You'll learn more about it later.
And then Dr. Gregoire.
I am Tom Gregoire. I'm a person in long-term recovery, which for me means I've been clean and sober for 43 years, and I tell you that first because it makes everything I'm about to tell you possible. I'm the Dean at the College of Social Work at The Ohio State University. I've been in that role for 13 years and a faculty member for about the same amount of time prior. Prior to doing that for a living, I came here from Kansas, where I worked in a Catholic hospital system and ran drug and alcohol treatment programs for about 8 years. So I have experience both as a practitioner and as a scholar. My research is focused on addiction, principally access to treatment, and now considering more issues around long-term recovery. I've been appointed by the governor, and this is just the coolest thing I've been ever a part of. You know, the whole nation's watching, and I'm excited about that. So.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to go to Dr. Rosen.
Raisin.
Raisin.
Rhymes with poison.
Elton. Raisin.
I'm the Chief Wellness Officer of the Cleveland Clinic Emeritus, and have done a bunch of education in wellness. Written 22 books, 9 New York Times bestsellers, 4 #1 bestsellers. But my real reason on the committee, I think, is that I served on the FDA Advisory Committee that approved all opioids in the United States for 16 years, chaired it for 2 years. I ran anesthesia and critical care departments that had over 1,050 trainees, 300 faculty members and nurse anesthetists. And in that period of about 20 years, we had a total of 1 addicted person and 1 addicted student based on our ability to do prevention. And that's I'm looking forward to contributing to this too.
Did I miss, or did you mention that the Attorney General appointed you to the foundation?
I thought I said it, but if I didn't, I meant to.
You might have. I'm multitasking. All right, next, I know Representative Brown isn't here in person. Representative Brown, or do you happen, what's that? Do you happen to be, oh, there you are. I'm sorry. I'm looking over at the phone number. So you're up next.
Thank you. I'm State Representative Richard Brown, and I represent the 20th District, which is southeast and eastern Franklin County. I'm the Assistant Minority Whip in the House, the ranking member of the Government Oversight Committee. I also serve on the Rules and Reference, the Armed Services and Veterans Affairs, and the Civil Justice Committee. I've been in the House since 2017. I was appointed by the governor to this board. I'm the primary sponsor of what was House Bill 10 and the prior GA, currently House Bill 328, which is pending in the legislature in the House at this time to create the Governor's Office of Drug Policy. I've been very interested in the opioid issues, and hopefully we can get some legislation passed to help reduce the opioid deaths and the addiction crisis in Ohio. I'm honored to be a part of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I'm sorry I missed seeing your face on camera. Next up, Senator McCauley. I think I see you on virtually as well.
Hi, I'm Senator Rob McCulley from the 1st Senate District up in Northwest Ohio. I'm also the Majority Whip of the Ohio Senate, appointed by Senate President Matt Huffman to this committee. Happy to be here. Also, in a previous stage of my career, I was a criminal defense attorney who dealt with an awful lot of the folks that hopefully we're going to be helping with this foundation. So looking forward to the work we have ahead of us.
Thank you. I know Representative Pavliga wasn't going to be able to attend. Grant, are you on by, there you are, I see you. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sorry about that. I apologize, Representative Pavliga. I couldn't be here today or attend virtually. Shay, in here, but I definitely know this is something she's very passionate about, and using her behavioral health background to kind of champion a lot of these causes and be proactive in this. She's a chairwoman for the Behavioral Health Committee, so as we move along here, she'll be more present, but she wanted me to at least have a presence here and kind of have the office engaged in this today. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Grant. I know Senator Feder wasn't going to be able to join us. I see there's a few numbers. So Grant or Ben or Chelsea, are either of you on behalf of Senator Feder? Okay. Let's go to jump right into the regions. I know we had some additions even today, so I think we have Region 2 represented. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, there. Because I know we met, but I haven't been able to quite get all the region numbers down. So if you want to introduce yourself and if you can give a little context about how you were chosen by your region, that would be helpful.
Okay, I'm Denise Driehaus. I'm the Hamilton County Commissioner from Hamilton County, Region 2. We're our own region, one county, one region. So my experience is in the legislature. I was a state rep before I was a county commissioner, and I was on a traveling committee that investigated the opioid crisis throughout the state and authored a couple of bills with Robert Sprague, actually, that became law. So I'm very proud of that work. As a county commissioner then, I was appointed as the chair of the Hamilton County Addiction Response Coalition, a coalition that's pillared around prevention, treatment, law enforcement, and public health. Faith community, business community are in there too, as well as the hospital systems. And so I've chaired the committee for 5 years, and we have been trying very hard to collectively work to fill the gaps when it comes to addiction and how to save lives, get people into long-term recovery, and also advocate collectively for dollars, especially from the federal government, to fund some of our work, like the quick response teams and some of the prevention work that we're doing on the ground. So I've got a listing of the group. I was a big part of putting the group together to make sure that because we talked to you guys first, and I talked to Rachel Masood a lot about this. So we were very careful when we put this together. I'm happy to read off the folks that are on here if necessary or not.
Do you want to share a little
You can
detail?
share it with us, yeah. You can just share it by email.
Okay, so generally speaking, there are some elected officials from both the city and the county here. Local jurisdictions are also represented, and we reached out and made sure all of them were aware of what we are doing. And then we've got quite a few people with lived experience that are serving on our group. We met last week, thanks to the governor's memo about this meeting today. We felt the prod, which was good, and we met last week, and so here I am. And I'm delighted to be here. Our numbers are very high in Hamilton County. We're losing about 500 people a year to addiction, and those numbers are very troubling. They're stable, but that's not a victory, as we all know. So I'm really looking forward to working with all of you and sharing in all your expertise. Region 3.
Thank you. My name's Armin Budish. I'm the Cuyahoga County Executive. Before that, I served a term as Speaker of the Ohio House. Cuyahoga County's been very involved in the opioid crisis, having been the first major bellwether case in the country. And we settled our case nicely. Region 3, our advantage is that we are one county like Hamilton. The disadvantage is that I got 59 localities that I gotta deal with something like this. And so, basically, working with Matt Carroll from my office and a few others, put together a proposal for a diverse regional council. We ran it by all of them. We got agreement. Mayor Bibb, who's the mayor of Cleveland, and I met to talk about who should be the proposed representative to this meeting. We flipped a coin, and here I am. I won't tell you if I won or lost. Thank you.
Region 4.
Region 4, I'm Mike Beasley from Lucas County, Ohio, and for my day job, I'm the Oregon City Administrator, and I serve as Senior Policy Advisor to the Mayor of Toledo, and also the longtime Lucas County Administrator, so I kind of dealt with all sides. I think that's why they dragged me into doing this. From our end, the way we intend to fill our board is similar to some other models where we're going to have the county, the largest city, the second largest political subdivision, then all the suburban cities as a unit nominated person, and all the townships as a unit nominated person. That's where we're going to fill out our board, at least that's our intent. And moving forward, we're shaping up the final steps toward that resolution. And again, it's easier for us in two ways. We are a single county entity, and we have fewer subdivisions than Cuyahoga. So like all of us here, we recognize the impact on our families, Ohio's families, and on our criminal justice system, and on our economy of this crisis, and it's important to get it right. I want to thank the Governor, the Attorney General, and the Legislature for helping get this leadership and help drag us through this thing and get us to something that makes sense.
Thank you, Mike. Region 5, I think you're on virtually, Eileen.
Thank you. We were playing with the mic over here.
Yes,
Appreciate
we can hear
everybody's time. Thank you for the time. I am the Summit County Executive. We are a region by our own. We were also a part of the first major bellwether lawsuit in the country, along with Cuyahoga. And as Armin mentioned, we saw a settlement that probably nobody else will see. But we appreciate the state coming together and anything that we can do to help some insight. We created a structure once that was determined, and so we have, of course, the county, a group of key stakeholders made up of the mayor of the largest city, a representative of our Mazers Association, a representative of our Township Association, and our health department director. And we also have, beyond that, a group called the Opiate Abatement Advisory Council, we call it the OAAC, which is the group that locally looks at proposals that come in about what we should fund and what we shouldn't fund, or what we might think about funding in the future, if not now. So we have a process that we're going through, even in terms of distributing grants at this point in time. So, and lots of other ideas where we'd be happy to share with anybody. We look forward to working with you to see how we can make a major impact with this horrible tragedy in our communities. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Eileen. We are going to now go to Region 7.
Hi, I'm Dwayne Picciarelli. I'm the Executive Director of the Mahoning County Mental Health Recovery Board. Region 7 is Mahoning and Trumbull County. The way the region came together, both prosecutors from Mahoning and Trumbull did a memorandum of understanding that the commissioners passed by resolution, and they passed by resolution for my appointment. The other members will be people with lived experience, family members. The cities will elect one representative, and the townships will elect a representative. And then both boards of county commissioners supported the appointment of the Area Agency on Aging Executive Director, wanting a person with older representation on the board committee. So that's what it makes us up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to Region 8. Judy, I think you're on virtually.
Yes, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. Hi, I'm Montgomery County Commissioner Judy Dodge. You know, back in 2016, when the opiate epidemic was really hitting our community hard, we knew it would take a united, community-wide approach to change the tide. So the county led the initial charge with Public Health Dayton and Montgomery County and the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services, or ADAMAS, to form the Community Overdose Action Team, or COAT, and they've worked together to combat drug abuse and overdoses. Now, so far, more than 275 individuals from more than 100 different organizations have joined in the work of COAT. They include those from the local businesses and nonprofits, governmental agencies, faith-based organizations, healthcare, media, and individuals in recovery. In 2019, I became the county's liaison to COAT, which continues to seek ways to expand the effectiveness by finding and filling the gaps for services for those who are struggling with addiction. So we decided it would just be a natural fit to have the COAT Backbone Committee serve as the foundation for the Region 8 One Ohio Board. Now, we have merged 6 members of the COAT board with elected and appointed officials from 2 cities, Dayton and Trotwood, 1 township, 1 village, and the Chamber of Commerce to form a 12-member Region 8 governing board. Since Montgomery County took the lead on organizing our countywide structure, I am pleased to serve as the region's first liaison to this statewide foundation. So I do look forward to ensuring that the funds that we get back to our communities are efficiently finished as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next up, Region 9. I think Bambi, you're on virtually?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Region 9, I'm so jealous of you 1 county people. We have 8 counties: Fayette, Ross, Highland, Pike, Adams, Brown, Pickaway, and Scioto. 6 of those 8 counties are Appalachian. Scioto County was probably hit the hardest with the pills and then going on into heroin. We met the first time last Tuesday. I was nominated for like a county seat by one of our county commissioners that I've worked with for many years. He also nominated me to be on this board, but because we only had 6 of the counties represented at our meeting, nobody really knows anybody else yet. They didn't really feel comfortable in voting for a permanent representative to this board. So I am a temporary representative from Region 9. My background, I'm with the Community Action Agency. I've been there 43 years. We got involved with the opioid crisis back in 2014. I worked with some of my board members and then other people in the community to put together a local board consisting of providers, us, the hospital, law enforcement, the municipal court, common pleas court, the sheriff, the local police department. We have brought recovery housing into the community, which is something we didn't have. We have a recovery program through our agency with people with lived experience, our peer supporters. We've done a wellness program that is regional with our ADAM board. We've brought a lot of activities into our county. We've done some regional work with Ross County. I've not had experience with the other 6, but I'm looking forward to doing that and being involved in this board.
Thank you, Bambi. We're going to move on to Region 10.
I am Jeff Simmons, recently retired common pleas court judge from Benton County, not too far from Mr. Kidd is in Jackson County. But Benton County, by contrast, is the smallest county in the state of Ohio population-wise. Governor DeWine is nodding his head. He's certainly aware. He's visited us many times. Thank you. And I think Lake County actually has the honor of being the smallest geographically, smallest population-wise. Anyway, I was chosen, as best I understand it, through a series of Zoom meetings, because we are not one county, we are 8 counties. The county commissioners in those various counties somehow selected or requested people apply. They then, in some manner, selected that down to maybe 10 people, and then they actually conducted interviews. I was interviewed in that way, and then I don't know exactly how they voted, but I presume each county probably had 1 vote, and I was notified not long ago, just 10 days ago perhaps, that I had been selected. So I am very pleased to serve, and I made that clear, of course, to all of those county commissioners that were involved in that interview process. I would also say that the structure of this, I think, is both very interesting and very appealing to someone from Southeast Ohio. I think District Region 10 is comprised entirely of Appalachian counties. And so the structure with the regions, Region 1 county, Region 10, 8 counties, and so forth, it recognizes, I think, the great differences among the regions and among the rural and urban areas. And it's really, I think, great that that the foundation is set up to recognize that and approach the ongoing problem. And as I understand it, our goal really is to how to address the opioid crisis going forward. Certainly, lots of work has been done, lots of work will continue to be done, lots of work must continue to be done, but perhaps there's room for new ideas as we go forward and take the next step. And so I appreciate very much being able to serve on the board, and I look forward to working with, obviously, a great group of people. Thank you.
Let's move to Region 11.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeanette Worsbicky. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio Mid-Eastern Governments Association. We serve 10 counties in the Eastern Appalachian region of Ohio. And basically our mission is to help our communities with community and economic development projects. So Region 11, like my neighbor here, Jeff, consists of 7 counties in the Appalachian region: Belmont, Carroll, Columbiana, Harrison, Holmes, Jefferson, and Tuscarawas. Jefferson was especially hard hit and still is hard hit by the opioid crisis. As an organization, Omega is involved in a recovery to work program whereby we're working with our local economic development professionals, organizations that provide recovery services, and then also some of the employers in our region to help those folks in recovery get back into useful employment. So Region 11, we had our inaugural meeting last Thursday and approved our bylaws, which includes from each of the 7 counties, 1 county commissioner or their designee, the mayor of the largest city in each county or their designee, and then the president of each township association or their designee. So some of those folks are appointing folks from the private sector, from the Adams Board, that type of thing. And so we're anxious to learn more and take the next steps.
Thank you. Region 12, I think you are probably one of our newest appointments, or one of the newest ones that we learned about this morning.
Well,
okay.
Was it Friday or Thursday? Friday. So how I got appointed was, I actually had this on my calendar already, and we're on a conference call trying to decide who to elect, and I said, well, it's on my schedule anyway. But seriously, I'm the mayor of Zanesville, which was the 2nd capital of the state of Ohio until that darn Huntington moved it out of Zanesville, and not that I've let go of grudge. But as most mayors of probably every city, I don't care what size, you're dealing with, homelessness, housing issues, the opiate epidemic, and so I just saw this as an opportunity to help continue to work on this issue. We were formed much like Region 11, which is our next door neighbor. Matter of fact, I work with Jeanette. I'm on her board of Omega, on her executive board. So we were formed up the same way. Muscatine County, Coshocton, Guernsey, and a couple of smaller counties. I'm proud to say Zanesville is the largest city in southeastern Ohio. So I'm happy to serve on this.
Thank you. Region 13.
Hi, I'm Commissioner Catherine Whittington. I'm from Ashtabula County, which is the largest geographical county in the state, but a mid-sized population. I'm representing.
Do you look down on Lake County next door because they're so much smaller?
Well, you know, it takes me an hour to get through my county, so I really can't look down on anybody when it's 60 minutes, you're still in the county. I represent 4 counties, Lake Geauga, Portage, and of course Ashtabula County. I am a former children's services worker. I then ran for county commissioner after my home was burglarized by 13 heroin addicts, which led me to make a run for the commissioner's office to continue the fight on the drug epidemic. I'm also a mother of a child in active addiction and raising his children. So I'm hit personally and professionally all the way around. I was the lead for creating our drug task force to continue the work. We were a tri-county task force that dwindled down to everybody parting ways to really focus on their own counties as the opioid epidemic really took off and affecting the lives of our children and our families. So I took the lead on that, creating our local drug task force. I continue to work on the drug epidemic and getting work done to abate it by working nationally with prevention coalitions, sharing our story, how we work together collaboratively in Ashtabula County to abate the drug epidemic. We created a very simple structure. There is one commissioner per county. We have a representative from the unincorporated area, which just in our county, we have 27 townships to represent. So we have a representative for the unincorporated areas and then the representative from the incorporated areas. And in Ashtabula, we have 3 cities and 7 villages. So we are a 12-member board. And we feel that we have very good representation across, including all of those representatives from each one. Our township association is who made the appointment for the unincorporated area, and our city managers, mayors, got together and actually elected someone to serve for the incorporated areas. And it is just an honor and a pleasure to work with all of you to continue what is such an important fight.
Region 14. Thanks, Amy. I'm Dr. Greta Hostetler-Mayer, and I'm Chief Executive Officer of the Mental Health Recovery Board for Clark, Greene, and Madison counties. And it's truly a pleasure to be our nominee for our region, which is made up of 7 counties. So Clark, Greene, and Madison are 3 of those 7, plus Warren and Clinton, Butler, and Claremont. And I do believe that Commissioner Painter out of Claremont County really has taken the lead for the whole region. A lot of the commissioners really look to him as putting forward some structures that could work. And each individual county had a commissioner-driven process that formed a representative group across those counties to put forward a candidate for this appointee. And then each county voted on that. So there was a curriculum vitae or a resume that was required by the 3 candidates that were selected, and then a vote and a scoring rubric. We all answered some questions about the nature of our background and what interested us about being involved and so on. So I've been the CEO of the Adam H. Board there, Mental Health Recovery Board, for 6.5 years. So I live this. Actually, the opioid epidemic was just really happening in full force when I moved into that role from being staff prior to that. And then prior to being at the board, I worked for a provider organization that treated kids and families. So I really feel like I have some stories and experience around how families and kids have been impacted, as well as lots of other groups. All the entities that are represented well around the table. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity. Look forward to working with all of you, getting to know all of these colleagues that we have here, and really doing the very best that we can to bring what we know works to what will work in the actual regions that we represent. So thank you for that.
Region 15.
Hello, I'm Joe Antrim. I'm one of the Logan County Commissioners. Julie Amon, Shelby County Commissioner, is our State Foundation Board appointee. I'm here in her absence. She had another engagement that she could not be here today. So we have 9 counties. We have the most number of counties of any of the regions. So as you can guess, we had a big challenge with some help from CAO. We were eventually able to figure out a process. So in January, we sent an call out to all the township trustees in all 9 counties and all the village mayors and all the county commissioners, and we were saying, hey, we'd like to get a head start on this. So we had our first meeting for those that are interested, and in that meeting then we decided on a format in which each one of the counties would have a township representative, a municipality representative, and a county representative. And as you can imagine, with 9 counties, that ends up, you do the math, 27-member board, which gives a great amount of representation, but is a little cumbersome. So we chose to go ahead and say that each county, with each 3 of those representatives, would have 1 vote when it was when things were decided. So I'm the chairman of the region. And so my job is going to be to coordinate all the efforts of getting all the county representatives together to make decisions, to collect, you know, like a clearinghouse when projects do come along. Julie is the vice chairman, and she will go ahead and take all those ideas and bring them here to this board. And I'll be here if she has any more absences. But Julie's background in as a pharmacist, my background as a teacher for 35 years and family farm background, worked hard to get a head start so that Region 15 is well represented here. So thanks for all of your efforts as well. We truly are passionate and feel like this is something that is going to make a huge difference in the counties of West Central Ohio and in fact throughout the whole state.
Thanks, Joe. Region 17, I think you're on virtually this afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. I was really looking forward to come in person, but unfortunately I tested positive yesterday for COVID. So I'm looking forward for the next meeting. My name is Mircea Handru. I'm the Executive Director with the Mental Health Recovery Service Board of Seneca, Ottawa, Sandusky, and Wyandotte counties. I'm part of Region 17 as I was elected as the representative on statewide foundation board. We have 8 members on the region, 1 representing each of them are county commissioners, and 3 of them are public employees, I should say, in the mental health or recovery field. Each county in the 8 counties created a county hub, what we call, where we each have our own county meeting that is made out of private sector families in recovery, individuals in recovery, treatment providers, as well as village, city mayors, and township trusts. Each representative goes to that meeting and then brings the feedback to the regional board. We already had 3 regional meetings. Again, I'm really looking forward for this process. One of the things I'm hoping to get out of today, just to bring back to the region, is a little guidance on maybe how many public employees or elected officials should sit on a regional board. I know the county commissioners, they sit on our regional board, they are a little bit concerned that they didn't receive clear guidance and they don't want to have a potential conflict of interest with their elected position also being a voting member on this region, as well as some guidance, maybe how we should be structured so the foundation can receive the nonprofit status. Thank you.
Thank you, and hope your recovery goes smoothly. Did I miss 16? Are you on virtually? No, okay, we don't have 16 yet. Want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, Region 18 then.
I'm Jeff Biggs. I'm a Fairfield County Commissioner. Region 18 is comprised of Marion, Union, Morrow, Delaware, Knox, Licking, and Fairfield County. We put a call out to all of our township trustees and municipality mayors and asked them as in the individual counties to select between 3 and 5 representatives to the Region 18 board. We all did that. All of those folks got together. Each county then selected 1 representative to vote at Region 18. And so 3 weeks ago, we got together as a region for the second time. Those county representatives passed bylaws and chose me to be their representative. I started working on the opiate issue 15 years ago when one of the girls who had played softball with my then 12-year-old daughter, her mom called me and said, hey, what are you going to do about the heroin issue in Pickerington? I was a city councilman in Pickerington at the time. And 15 years ago, I said, what are you talking about, right? Called our police chief and he said, oh yeah, there's a heroin issue. I'm very fortunate that a good friend of mine was the former state director of alcohol and drug addiction services, a man by the name of Orman Hall. And Orman and I sat down over a series of weeks and he educated me on what he then called the pandemic or the epidemic, the opiate epidemic. And I was astounded and started gathering people to hear this story because at the time nobody really was talking about it. We created a task force. I was eventually chosen to be the leader of our opiate task force for our Adam Ward in Fairfield County. We've done a lot of work on it over the years and I'm passionate about it. I've had 3 close friends who lost children to the opiate epidemic, kids who I watched grow up. And you know, each time that happens, it breaks your heart and makes you want to fight harder. And that's why I'm here today. Thanks.
Region 19.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Hudson. I'm a Medina County Commissioner. And Region 19 consists of 7 counties in north central Ohio. And we're not quite as organized as what it sounds like the rest of you are. We had met several times and tried to come up with a corporate structure and a document to guide us. It included the 7 counties, our townships, our villages, and our cities. And then we got the governor's letter, and we decided, well, we're not gonna have time to do all that. So we streamlined our agreement for right now just to include 7 counties. Had a representative from each county appointed, and then we got together last week, and I was selected from amongst those to represent the region on this board. And I was actually at one of the original meetings that the governor hosted 4 years ago, or thereabouts, to discuss the concept of One Ohio and trying to settle all the lawsuits as a state and as opposed to individually. And I was very intrigued by the concept of having an organization like what we've ended up with now to be a steward of the funds and to protect the funds. I won't say who we're going to protect them from, but to protect them and to really use them and invest in our communities to make it better. Thank you.
Yes. And then I just want to make sure, Deb Flores, who's one of our expert panel members. Deb, are you on virtually by phone this afternoon? Okay. Wanted to make sure we didn't miss introducing Deb. Did I miss anybody else that's on virtually? Okay, great. Well, now it's my honor to turn it over and introduce you to our governor, Governor Mike DeWine, and he's going to introduce himself.
Yeah, Amy, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. I look around this room and I look virtually. I know you all are exceedingly busy, so thank you for your willingness to commit to this and to do this. And thank you for your expertise. A lot of talent in the room, a lot of talent virtually on, and I just appreciate it very, very much, and I know the people of Ohio appreciate it. Maybe to kind of set the stage a little bit, to go through some of the things that you know, but I think it's always, before launching forward, it's good to look back a little bit and see how we got here. And this is, I think, this is a big day. I'm not aware of any other states doing it. There may be some, but this is an idea, I think, that really came out of this is Ohio. This is kind of the way we do things, and we're different. We're a very, very local state, whether it's townships, villages, cities, counties. And so this is a solution to, or an answer to the fact that we're getting money, we hope we're going to get more money, and we want to figure out a logical way to spend it, but we also want to respect the fact that we have local jurisdictions all over the state. And so the different regions that have been set up reflect that. So go back to 2016, then into 2017. It was abundantly clear how bad, by that point, the opioid epidemic was in Ohio and across the country. And everybody understood it. Everyone was trying to do what they could do to deal with it. It was also becoming apparent in that time frame that the drug companies that were selling the opioids had culpability. And that was certainly something that the more facts we got, the worse, frankly, the story looked like. And so, as Attorney General, I had to decide what, if anything, to do about it. One state had filed a lawsuit, and that state was Mississippi. Mississippi is kind of always, frankly, an outlier. They're in the legal system, and they had done that. But then no one else did it. There was no stampede, there was nothing. Mississippi sitting out there, I think, for over a year is the only state that had filed a lawsuit. And so we frankly looked at this. We got experts. We tried to dig into all the facts to see, are these companies really culpable? And to sue drug companies and take them on like this was not something that was taken lightly. It's not something we did lightly. Long story short, we made the decision to move forward. We were therefore the second state to do it. And quite candidly, I felt at the time that if Ohio moved forward, I felt other states would move forward. We're a big state. We're a state that at that point in time was predominantly elected officials statewide were Republicans. Attorney General was a Republican. I was a Republican. We're also politically a swing state. And it just seemed that if Ohio did this, and after we talked to lawyers, they also told us they thought that if we did this, other states would move forward. So we filed the lawsuits and started down the path, and as a result of that, a number of other states then started coming on. After I became governor, we started looking at where we were at this point. And cases were in different levels or degrees of moving forward. And we also had, at that time, many local jurisdictions, some that you represent, that had filed lawsuits. And it just seemed at that point that we probably should come up with a way to intelligently spend the money that we were going to get. And it looked more and more like we were going to get money, and either in settlements or actually cases going to trial. And we felt that that was really the right thing to do. So we came up with this idea of the One Ohio Foundation. And then we started having a series of meetings. I remember several at the governor's residence. I know some of you, I look around the room, were actually there as we started talking about, is there a way we can get together? State can get together, general, local jurisdictions, and figure out what to do. We came up with the idea of the One Ohio Foundation, and thus we are here today. We the agreement that's been contained in a document, which I'm sure you all have seen, and if you have not, you're welcome to look at it, because it kind of spells out what the agreement was, what the understanding was among everyone, was that 55% of the money would go into this foundation. Other money, instead of taking a bigger chunk, we decided to kind of, as far as the governor's office, to put our money into the foundation. There's 15% that remains with the state. Some of that may end up going into the foundation. We got to work with the Attorney General in regard to where that 15% goes. And then as you know, the remainder of the 30% goes out to local jurisdictions. But staying with this foundation, one of the things that frankly I was concerned about was looking back at our experience in regard to the tobacco settlement. That was the other big settlement that we had. And the money ended up being spent for good things, I'm sure. And so I'm not being critical of that. But when I became governor and looked at that, when we looked at the smoking problem in Ohio and the tobacco problem in Ohio, there frankly was no money to do much, or very little money to do anything with, because we had monetized it and spent it. My thinking was that this money is going to come in bunches of money at different periods of time. But it was only going to come in from each of the defendants once. And so we were going to get that money, and then we have to decide how fast we should be spending this money. And so the way this is set up, one of your tasks is to make that decision. How fast does this money go out? And in making those decisions, I would advise you to listen to the expertise of the Attorney General and his lawyers, because they can tell you where these cases are, how far along they are. They can give you confidentially, or maybe not confidentially, at least a general idea of maybe what the value of these cases are and how many years we can expect this money to flow in. Some of the settlements, as you will see, do provide for a payout period of time. So again, you can graph that, put that on a chart, and kind of figure out how that is going to work. So the way it was left was the decision about how fast it's spent, how it's invested, how long you take to get it out is left to you. And this is the decision of the foundation board. So that's a kind of a little of the background. I'm proud of what we've done in Ohio. I think it is a logical way to approach this. One of the concerns we had was that some jurisdictions would be getting, a township, for example, might be getting a relatively small amount of money. What are they going to do with $1,000? What are they going to do with $3,000? And so again, these are things that we thought the pooling of the money might be the wise thing to do. Another thing that I would suggest you might look at is, again, pooling it even further. There are other jurisdictions that are going to get individual money. They may decide that they want to be part of something bigger and go together. So all of those things can be worked out. Money can be pooled together from other sources. As far as I cannot speak for the legislature, but I can speak for me. We will continue to try to do what we can in regard to the opioid problem, the drug problem, being cognizant of the fact you have money, but not pulling back because you have this settlement money. I think it would be a grave error if the legislature or the governor would say, look, that's a problem, we're going to let the foundation take care of it, this is not a state problem. It remains a preeminent state problem. And we will continue, as long as I'm governor and have anything to say about it, we will continue to invest significantly in the opioid problem, the drug addiction problem, and the mental health problem, which, as you know, are many times linked in together. So with the help of the legislature, we are making an unprecedented investment in the mental health problem. We just had an announcement this morning of $84 million that's going to go out to children's hospitals around the state of Ohio in regard to behavioral health and mental health. We had an announcement on Friday where we're going to, with the legislature's permission and concurrence, we will set aside money in regard to the workforce problem in the area of mental health, which is just a huge, huge, huge problem. And we have a plan. We have a plan to do that, and we will be doing other things in the area of mental health and addiction. So we're not going to pull back. Our commitment to you is we're going to continue to move forward. If there is ways that we can work with you, that's fine. But we're going to do what we believe we need to do, and hope and know that you will be able to do the same thing with the money that you have. So again, for a different day, a discussion that I would suggest you all have with the Attorney General about what the flow is going to look like. He can't guarantee anything, but he can certainly give you the best judgment that he and his lawyers have in regard to where these lawsuits are. So again, thank you for doing this. This is a huge, huge undertaking. There's no precedent for it. No one's tried to do it this way before. But I like to think it's the Ohio way, and it is something that we rely on. Instead of this being a decision that gets made in state government, this is going to be a decision that's going to be spread out in each region and each area. But you will have kind of the overall setting of the basic principles. You're going to be able to rely on experts. You're going to be able to bring people in to talk with you. We have some experts already right here. But I would just, advise you to listen to the best experts that you can find in this whole area. But you bring something unique, and that is you understand your regions, you understand your areas. No one does it better than you. You live there, you represent it, and so that's why the work that you're going to do, I think, is very, very important. So I'll turn it back to Amy, and thank you all very much again for being willing to do this.
Thank you, Governor. So the next item on the agenda is really starting to dig into some of the business and operations of the foundation. And so I'm going to turn it over to the Benish team so they can introduce themselves, so I especially don't pronounce Marty's last name wrong. And then they'll kind of take over from here. And for those of you who are on virtually, again, I encourage you to unmic and interact like you're here in the room and participate in the discussion. If that becomes a challenge for you, please feel free to chat as well. I will be monitoring that and be able to raise any discussion items you bring in the chat. So I want to turn it over to Holly and Marty. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Marty Sweterlich with Benish, Friedlander, Copeland, and Aronoff, otherwise known as Benish. That's all you need to remember if you want to remember it. This is my colleague, Holly Gross, who is also with Benish. And viewing on the YouTube channel are the other two women who are actively involved in this project. And you'll see their names as we go through this process of creating this thing. Jessica Agney, who is in our Cleveland office. You won't see her there. They're on the YouTube with the citizens. But Jessica Agney and Julia Rolniak, who is an associate in our tax department. I'm going to just give you a little inkling of what we are going through with this process, both as we talk about the articles and we talk about the status of the foundation. The decision was made, as the governor described, to create essentially a freestanding not-for-profit corporation that would then hopefully enjoy tax exemption, federal tax exemption, and I'll explain the hopefully part in a few minutes. But we have created the corporation, and I wanted to call your attention initially to the articles of incorporation, which are in the packet that you were sent. And all I'm going to do is, I want to encourage you at your leisure, if any of you have any leisure, you seem to be extremely busy people. I, on the other hand, was planning to be retired until Sean Buskin from the AG's office and one of my partners decided to indenture me to this project. You can all laugh, I'm laughing, and here I am. So the thing I want to call your attention to, first of all, is the purpose statement. Because it comes directly out of the MOU, it comes out of the settlement agreement. It is, the first item, at least in the packet I received, is the articles, and you have to go back 3 pieces of paper to get to the attachment, which kind of looks like this for those of you who can see it. Those articles at the top, big clue there. And the purpose is front and center on this page because it was taken directly from the documents that were created by the representatives who were in the room to create the MOU. So I think it's pretty broad. I think it looks both to prevention and recovery. It looks to service. And in some sense, it looks to what I refer to as reparation for some of these communities who have already put a lot of their time and treasure into dealing with the opioid epidemic. The pot of money that will be coming to this, as you know, is roughly 55% of the distributor settlement over 18 years. And that's all I'm going to say about the money today. But it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, even the chunks of it that will come each year. So it will be devoted to these purposes. So I urge you to look at that. I also urge you to, because we don't really have the ability to change that, at least not at this point. The court has kind of blessed that. So they are what they are, but I think they're broad enough that we can encourage you and help you to understand how you can do a lot of things under those purpose statements. The rest of it are the standard kind of language that you see in articles for an entity that wants to enjoy tax exemption. The IRS has something to say about what goes in those articles, about what happens to the assets upon dissolution, about what you can and cannot do in terms of lobbying and private inurement and all those kinds of things. And if we need to have some discussion or education for people on those subjects at a later time, we're happy to do that. And you're welcome to email us with questions when you read these documents. So that's really what I wanted to call to your attention. I also want to point out, because this is a private nonprofit corporation, and because for all those reasons that the governor enumerated, at some point it's going to be launched. But for now, Amy and her crew in the Recovery Ohio office have been staffing this and had convened this meeting because there was sort of nobody else to do it, you know? So I think I'd like to say thank you very much to them for everything they've done, and certainly to the Attorney General's office, because we've had so much communication back and forth as we've gone through this. So I just wanted to do that off the top.
It might be worth saying, the articles were filed in the beginning of December of last year. So there is officially an entity. It's the One Ohio Recovery Foundation.
You have the document in your packet. It's the first page, and so you can find them online if you choose. That is kind of the first step for obviously creating this thing. The status is a whole other conversation. Many of you, hopefully all of you, but certainly most of you have seen the guidance that went out under the term of a toolkit to anybody who wanted to receive it. And we worked with the County Commissioners Association, the Township Trustees Association, the Mayor's Alliance, I'm probably leaving somebody.
The Municipal League.
And the Municipal League, thank you, to put some guidance together that would hopefully assist you in how to organize. And I understand that it was frustrating for people because nobody said do A, B, C, and D. We said, here it is, organize yourselves in whatever works best for your region. a couple of things that we did say, and I said them when we got a lot of phone calls, and we did answer the phone. We wanted as much, first of all, we wanted as much private sector involvement, both at the regional level and at this table, as you all could figure out to do. So, you know, as you look at particularly now your regional structures, we need you to include people with lived experience, providers, you know, folks that know, you know, what they're talking about, but are not necessarily public officials. That was an appendix to the toolkit, and the reason it was there is because in order to get this entity tax exempt under 501c3, we have to show the Internal Revenue Service not only that it has a charitable purpose, which it clearly does. I'm not worried about any of that. I'm not really worried about the source of the money because it's essentially because it's a governmental money, and so that makes that job a little easier. I mean, because it's, you know, it's coming essentially to all these plaintiffs who were governmental entities. So I think we can convince the IRS that it's governmental money, which is helpful in trying to get this tax exempt. The problem we're going to run into is we are trying to convince the IRS that the One Ohio Recovery Foundation is not itself a governmental entity. And therein lies the rub, because if they see too much connection to the government in terms of how it's directed and managed and all of that, they could say it is integral to government, and therefore, and I'm being perfectly candid with you because you're on this board and you need to know the status of this, they could say it is integral to government, which is tax speak for, as far as the IRS is concerned, this is a government agency. And therefore, they will not give a 501c3 status. Now, from a money perspective, the money is still tax exempt because it's governmental money, right? But it does give us some issues with respect to being able to protect the money in the ways that the governor alluded to, and the very reason why all of the folks who got in the room and drafted the MOU were in that room and doing that. So if we seem to harp on the private sector involvement, that is why. It is extremely important at every level as we look at getting this exempt. We are working on the application. The application required, one, that we be able to tell the IRS how this foundation board is structured. We have to have a code of regulations with this amazing woman is working on, and you will get a draft of eventually. But we're trying to walk the line I've described, and you will be asked to meet again at your next meeting and adopt a code of regulations, which will come to you well in advance so that you have time to chew on it and make your edits and communicate about it. But we need a code of regulations in addition to the articles, and a lot of descriptive information to the IRS. We needed an EIN, and Mr. Kidd was generous enough to, he is your acting secretary treasurer, just so you know, because we needed somebody, and he was willing to give us certain personal information that is required in order to get an EIN. So, which I promised to chew up and swallow immediately after using it. Yes, sir. Armin.
On a number of occasions mentioned you want us to have private sector involved. We have a number of nonprofit providers, for example. Are those considered private sector?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm of the view personally that the more you involve the community, the providers, for-profit, not-for-profit, people with lived experience, associations, the more of that you have in your regional communication and structure, I think that's healthier for getting the job done, for getting the work done, for understanding what the community needs are and how best to meet them. So while, you know, I've spent most of my career dealing not just with nonprofits, but I lobbied for nonprofits for 20 years. I've spent a lot of time with legislators and government officials over the years, and I love you all, but for this purpose, we need a combination. So we're harping, that's why we're harping. We really want this foundation to be able to, one, protect the money so that it doesn't get spent for other worthy governmental causes, and stays with the intention that was included in the MOU. But I also, just because I think that makes a better product. So we're.
We have a question from someone
Sure.
virtually. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I made some notes during the introduction, and it appears to me that 95% of everybody who represents the region is either an elected official or a public employee. So I don't know. I'm just concerned. Even when I listen to the regions, how they are created, it appears again you have county commissioners, cities, villages, townships. I don't know. I'm concerned about that. And I guess Pro need a little bit more guidance. Again, when I listen to the regions, I think 95. I think it was maybe only one. There was a retired common police court judge, but everybody else was either a current public employee or elected official.
We're going to cover that because we've got Ethics Commission guidance on that. So that's a little later in the agenda if you don't mind waiting for it. Because we've gotten those calls all the time.
I just wanted to mention that in our region, although we didn't require it, we strongly encouraged that at least one of the 3 representatives from each one of the counties was non-governmental. And in fact, we have at least 1 or 2 from each county that are not considered government.
I think once Leah, this lovely woman back there typing madly away, is taking verbatim minutes of this. So we have this information that you've all given us around the table. And we may follow up with some of you so we can build some. I mean, this is not going to be a skinny application to the service. It's going to be one of these kinds. The one other thing I want to say about the status of the application, so I don't forget to emphasize, we are in the process of getting that application ready to file. But, as you can tell from what I've said so far, we got a ways to go before it'll be ready to file. The good news is we have 27 months from the date the articles were filed to do it, to get it filed, and assuming the service says yes, the exemption will go back to the date the articles were filed with the state. We do not intend to take 27 months. I don't really want to be doing this for 27 months. But we've got time, and we've got time to do it right. So as we go through these minutes, we may come back to you individually about more information on your regions.
How long do you think it'll take the IRS to make a ruling?
Oh.
27 months.
That is, it is taking them months right now, for full applications that go in. And so I know everybody in this room probably knows somebody who did their little online filing. They're all online now, but they were a small organization. They were going to have less than $50,000 a year, and they filed, and by gosh, in 6 weeks they had a decision. That is not you. One, we can't use that little online application, this is going to be one that I do not think the initial screener who looks at it will be able to do it. What you hope for when you're in my line of work is that the initial screener will look at it and say, looks good to me, and his or her supervisor will say yes, and you get it relatively quickly. I mean, given the IRS doesn't have enough people to collect our taxes, I'm not optimistic. We are prepared to use some congressional intervention if we have to, but we're trying to avoid the thing getting sent to an agent somewhere and sitting on someone's desk for years. So, yes.
Some of the concerns that have been expressed by some of our members, if a representative, either nonprofit or for-profit, would actually be eligible for these funds, for treatment, do they then recuse themselves from voting on projects, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that gets in also to the guidance we had from the Ethics Commission on the public officials, but for a not-for-profit 501c3, if you are on the board and you have a conflict of interest, there is a conflict of interest procedure that the IRS likes to see, and we are building that into the Code of Regulations. You will see it, because it's more procedure than policy. I mean, it's clearly a policy, but it is a procedure, and it tells you how to go about that. So in the private nonprofit world, conflicts are manageable. In the public sector, they are more complicated because of the Ohio ethics laws. That is why it was important to us to have conversation with the Ohio Ethics Commission. If there are any public officials who are directors at this table who, for some reason, would be getting an interest in a public contract, that's a whole other ethics discussion, not for today.
It's more complicated.
It's a lot more complicated. By the way, I was general counsel for the Ohio Water Development Authority for 20 years, so I've got some knowledge of Ohio ethics. I had a weird practice. Let me just put it out there. So I have knowledge of Ohio ethics law and a whole variety of other things about water and sewer you probably don't even want to know. But we're, you know, for most of you, that issue is manageable, just like it is if you're on the board of the YMCA, you know, and you want to sell them your brother-in-law's truck.
Just our takeaway from this should be, as we're forming our local boards, though, we should be mindful to make sure we don't all walk like ducks. Some of us are government, some of us are other things. And ultimately, we want to listen to the advice of our council and the AG on this room. It might be we want to make sure this room is more diverse as well, but at least at the local levels we're forming, we want to make sure we're walking in that direction. Is that a fair takeaway for us?
That is an excellent takeaway. Are there any other questions on the subject of where we are on the application? Because the real work is about to start for the rest of you.
I don't see anybody.
Nobody has gone running from the room with no intention of returning?
I think on the application, though, we will be, as Marty said, building in this narrative that if you have broad private sector participation, a few of you did mention it, then we'll make sure that that's included in our narrative. So there's ways to, you know, if just because one region structured a certain way, that doesn't mean that that's going to blow it for the entire application, right? So it's a series of factors that the IRS is going to look to. So we're building in a favorable narrative.
I just want to let you know, too, that I'm not being rude when I look at my phone, but Jessica and Julia are in the public side of this, and so they can't communicate. So if they have a question they want me to address, I'm just watching my email to see, because that's how we're communicating with the rest of our team. So Holly's next up to talk about, we're going to discuss the operational checklist, but first we're going to discuss the Ethics Commission advice. So it's in your packet. I think it's right after the articles.
If you haven't already reviewed this document, then we would encourage you to do so. So we went to the Ohio Ethics Commission sort of to the effect of the question that we received on the phone, and we asked them two questions. I'm going to focus on one for purposes of today's conversation because that relates most to the foundation, but we would encourage you, and we're happy to field questions on the second portion of this as well. So we asked the Ohio Ethics Commission, are the members of the governing board, you guys, of the One Ohio Foundation public officials or public employees for purposes of under Ohio law? The brief answer that we received is that it depends very much on the exemption, whether or not we're a private independent 501c3 organization. So the Ethics Commission did opine that it's difficult to say with certainty, but here's a couple of things that you should know. So the first is if a nonprofit organization qualifies for tax exemption, then they are not a public agency under Ohio law, so it's not a public entity. The definition of an employee, a public employee, is a person who's elected or appointed to an office or as an employee of a public agency. So that goes back to, if we are not a public agency, then the individuals serving on the board and the employees of the foundation will not be considered public employees or public officials. So a member or, let me just make sure. So, I mean, that's ultimately what the guidance said. There was a second question that we asked. Are members of the regional boards, are they public officials for purposes of the Ohio Ethics Commission laws? You can read about that, as I mentioned. That's going to depend on how your regions are structured. And I think it's important to mention that on the first part of this question, you're still a public official for purposes of your other capacity, so be mindful. When you're in this room, you may not be a public official, but when you go back to your region, depending on how that's structured and the role in which you're playing, that may be.
We didn't promise easy.
Yeah.
Since it could take months to figure out if we're public or not, what do you recommend? I've been through a board that we went quasi-public, Jobs Ohio, when we started up. And we had to follow basically the ethics commission, we filled out the forms, all that. Since we may not know for 2 years, what's your recommendation?
Well, we actually talked to the Ethics Commission about that, and they made it very clear to us that in the event, which we hope will not happen, that they had to come to a different conclusion with respect to this entity. There would not be any retroactive effect on anybody. So we can go forward from this point as operating as a private entity, and nobody is going to be subject to some gruesome result from the Ethics Commission because of something due before we have an IRS decision. And it is not absolutely clear that even if we get not our favorite decision from the IRS, that the Ethics Commission will make a completely opposite decision. They just sort of reserve the right. It's like an insurance company's reservation of rights here. But we're good now. You can just go forward. You're still, those of you who are public officials are still public officials for your public official duties, but you are not a public official by reason of your appointment to this board.
So the fact that we have filed a 1702 corporation, you're saying that in and of itself is not enough. We need to have the IRS determination in order to be exempted from the ethics.
Well, it's unclear. What we understand from the IRS is that they could look at this, as I said earlier, and say, this is integral to government. That's tax speak for, we think you're a government entity. That doesn't, this thing is still not in Ohio statute. Unlike Jobs Ohio, there is no statutory language about this, and we should like to keep it that way. The Ethics Commission just reserved their right. They didn't say unequivocally, if you don't get a 501c3 status from the service, these folks are all automatically public officials. There are other characteristics and things they have to look at, but they were not willing to make a blanket statement, and I understand that. They're all lawyers too. So this is where we are.
Don, the statute is a 501c3.
But, okay, so when I filed those type of applications, a lot of times you're filing for a C3 and they send you a C6 or something else. So how's that affected if we end up being a C6, which is like a chamber of commerce?
The possibility is that they would find us to be a C4, which is actually a better result than not giving us anything at all. They're not going to give us a C6. We're not a trade association on any stretch of the imagination. And you're not a labor union. You're not a social club. The fallback for such organizations is a C4 status, which would not be terrible. It wouldn't be great if you're out trying to get private donors to put money in the pot because they don't get a tax deduction for it. But other than that, all the other rules pretty much apply. And so I don't think we'd have a problem with the Ethics Commission either. It would just give us other operational issues to think about. But we're proceeding as if this thing is going to be a 501c3. But if we end up as a C4, we haven't, and most of the work we've done will be fine. You still have to do all these things. So that's kind of where we are. Mr. Budish?
It's a little unsettling to be in a position where you don't have an answer, and I understand that. I mean, it's not. Is there any kind of director's insurance or something like that that we could purchase to protect us?
Well, I don't know that there is any, that directors, at some point, we should talk about directors and officers insurance. It's just, a little bit down the road because, you're gonna need some. Whether it will cover this particular circumstance, I'd have to think about and talk to some folks about, some insurance people about it. But as I said, the Ethics Commission has told us that they're certainly not gonna retroactively try and enforce ethics laws, especially, this is one of the reasons why we wanted this. When we talked to them, can we have guidance? So just keep this in your pockets. You've got it. So I think, if we don't get a tax exempt status from the IRS, then we'll have another conversation with the Ethics Commission and obviously a lot more conversation around the table. And we can certainly check on the insurance piece. You're gonna want D&O insurance because you're gonna be handing out a lot of grants for a lot of money, so.
That's incorporated into the Code of Recs.
Yeah.
Other than the
There's-
ethics issue, are there other issues, because we're still fiduciaries of an organization?
Well, there obviously are a lot of issues because you're fiduciaries of an organization. So, when we start through the checklist here, that'll get to some of them.
You have,
I think I'm gonna.
One more question virtually, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Sure. I know it was stated that Ohio Ethics will not go back retroactively. Can we get it in writing from them?
I'm sorry.
Can we get it in writing that they won't apply it retroactively?
We can certainly ask. I'll ask the director of the Ethics Commission that question. Quite frankly, they've got enough work that they are particularly interested in doing something that would violate the guidance they've already given us, but I will see if they will do something about that. Okay, so one other quick thing I want to mention, we'll get to it in the Code of Regulations anyway, but you raised the fiduciary duty question. And one of the things that is a matter of the common law, you won't find it in the statute, but it is a matter of the common law and it applies across all 50 states. When you are the director of an organization, unlike being a member with a voting member of an organization, when you are a director of an organization, you cannot delegate that fiduciary responsibility. In other words, there's no designees. This is not a public body. This is not something where you can say, I'm the public official and I want to delegate this person, this employee, this staff person, this deputy, and it's in state law. I've spent a lot of time with that subject because of my other involvement. But this is a private not-for-profit, and there's no delegation, there's no proxies. And I'm not making this up, it's the law, and everybody needs to understand that. So if as you're thinking about that, and I know there may still be some legislators on remotely, as you're thinking about that, if you are thinking that you can just send your staff, you can send them, but they won't have voting rights, and there's nothing I can do about that. So while the MOU says the legislature has appointments, it does not say the legislature has appointments of legislators. So if it is better for the legislature to think about more permanent appointments or people who can be here, and I just know your schedules. I lobbied for all those years, so and I know you want someone here you want to be represented, but I can't really change Ohio law. Nor in that circumstance would I want to for all of these, for nonprofits. So that's kind of where we are with that, and I'll just put it out there, and then we can have individual conversations about it.
Well, that's probably one of a couple of items where just operationally, the board may have to differ from some of the terms of the MOU. So for example, the MOU says expressly that delegates or alternates may be sent to the One Ohio Foundation board meetings. So that's something that I think we're gonna have to continue to talk about in these meetings. That's the first. There are a couple of other differences.
And that's just a function of the fact that there was, I just put it this way, there wasn't a tax attorney in the room when the MOU was put together. We're a nonprofit attorney. So, stuff like this happens, but there are places where if you're gonna have this private entity, we're gonna have some issues with the way the MOU is written. So I want to, I don't know, do people feel like they need to stand up and stretch, maybe take a rest break before we start down this rather daunting list of things? You okay with that, Amy?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, can we just do 5, because we got a lot of crap to get through yet.
And again, if you need the restroom, if you go out this door, make a left and then a left. The men's and women are both in that hallway. And there's bottles of just have that.
Okay, so, we're not gonna try and go line by line through the checklist. You can do that on your own. There are a few things we're gonna talk about, specifically about what it's taking and what we need to do today and going forward from today to get this thing up and running. The checklist itself starts with a review of the Code of Regulations, which Wonder Woman here is working on. But I'm just going to take these as the topic, Holly. So I think in terms of dealing with those, everybody's going to get them when they're ready. But if there are folks who, and you can think about this, you don't have to put your hand up now, but we will want a smaller group of people who will dig deep and communicate with us about them. So we need essentially people to volunteer for Code of Regulations Committee. Just keep that in mind because there are plenty of opportunities. You don't have to raise your hand now. But that is a really important document, as you know, for our application, not only our IRS application, but because those are the operating rules for a nonprofit corporation. So think about what you'd like to do with that. What we have below that on the checklist are just the first, what we thought out of the gate kind of policies that the board ought to have. I mean, you are looking at a lot of money coming into this entity. And so you want to be squeaky clean with respect to both the IRS and the citizenry that's going to be looking at this. There's going to be eyes on this all the time. So there are other policies that we will identify. There are other policies that I'm sure you will identify that you want to have. But out of the gate, this is the list we came up with. So you might want to have essentially a policy committee that may just be a temporary committee to look at the documents. We've given you drafts of these policies in this pile of paperwork. But again, another opportunity to contribute. If you are a policy wonk kind of person and you have some experience with other nonprofits and you want to be a big help, working on those policies. And if some of them are things that just, you read them, and if you don't have experience with a particular area and you read it and you don't understand it at all, we failed our job because the policies have to be understandable to everybody. But I have to say, excess benefit transaction policies are not, if you've got insomnia, read them at night. But they're an important policy, especially given the level of this entity and the amount of money that's coming through it. So that's why it's one of them that's on the list. In terms of, in the code, there'll be a list of rather more permanent committees that we think you'll want to have. But for now, we're just trying to think about what do we need to get going. So the committee on the Code of Regs, a committee to look at these policies, a personnel or hiring committee. Clearly there'll be a permanent personnel committee, but you need to be thinking about an RFP to get a search firm, because I don't think anybody here wants to go through hundreds of applications for an executive director by themselves. So to get an executive search firm in place, I have some samples that we can share with the committee once it's assembled to start with, so you don't have to start putting an RFP together from the ground up.
This is going to be different than most executive directors, because in other words, the executive director's job is not to recruit money.
Right.
So it may be a different job description than most.
Yeah, your first job is not going to be looking for a development director sort of person. You need someone who has experience not only in managing whatever this is, but grant making. Because and I'll get to that in a minute, but yeah. So you need to think about what qualifications you're going to need. And then, like I say, I think an executive search firm is what you need to find. And they will work with you on refining the job description, because that's what you pay them to do.
And the MOU sets forth a series of required qualifications of the executive director. The governor actually is also involved in that process, so we're sort of working through that with the governor's team as well.
I have some experience. I'll be glad to serve on the committee.
Write his name down now. We're going to give people an opportunity to volunteer by email as well. I mean, we just need folks to think about it. So in addition to a hiring committee, which will do an RFP, vet the search committee, probably work with vet the search firm, and probably work with the search firm in terms of winnowing down the candidates to bring to the board and to bring in for interviews. One of the things on the exec, there's language in the MOU about salary commensurate with state employment. We're of the opinion that given the size of this thing, you're probably not going to be able to do that very well, that you're probably going to have to exceed that criteria. But,
Why would we connect it to the state schedule at all?
Because they put it in the MOU.
I think the way that it was written in
Enough said.
I think the way that it was written in the MOU actually was not the way, learned that it wasn't actually the way the parties intended it to be. So there was that it was actually meant that the opposite, right? That they wanted to make sure that it wasn't bound by those limitations.
Yeah, I can speak to it just for the little bit of background that I do know, that it's written in the MOU to say it's not to exceed a certain state level schedule, but that's using direct foundation level dollars. So if there's other dollars that come into the foundation outside of the settlements, those were some conversations around you all as the foundation can decide what's the right salary for the executive director and the staff, but knowing that how do you balance the settlement dollars that are coming in, and then if there's other down the road, other donations, private donations, other foundation dollars that are coming in, that you all certainly can make those decisions.
So how tied is the foundation to the MOU?
That is a question that we have been discussing for months now. So I think some of the language is very specific. Some of it, just as we pointed out, doesn't comport with what folks are asking for. If their intent was to have a separate 501c3, then, for example, that designee language we talked about. So I think there's a lot of conversation to be had about that and about how we essentially comply with the spirit of the MOU and still put together something that works. So for example, on the hiring, the last thing you want to do is take a candidate solely because they fit the salary schedule, but they don't have the kind of qualifications that you need. I mean, you are essentially setting up something the size of the Columbus Foundation overnight. And so you need the right person. And
Getting it right is more important than getting it cheap, is that the point?
that is my point, yes, that is my point. So, I mean, this is going to be an ongoing tension, and we can discuss the legal ramifications at another time, actually. But I think, and you'll get advice from your executive search firm in terms of given what your qualifications are and what the nature of the job is, what's the salary range you're going to have to set if you want to get a credible candidate. So you'll have outside advice on that. And finally, the investment people are already bothering this woman over here because this is a lot of money. And at some point, it's going to start showing up in a bank account with your name on it, your being the collective you, and they want to invest it. So what we are recommending is that there be, again, a committee. There'll be a permanent investment committee, but initially you need a committee that is willing to work with appropriate people to put together an RFP to hire an independent investment advisor, not somebody who's works for Fidelity or one of the other houses that wants to sell you stuff. but an independent investment advisor. And again, it's an RFP, it's a, then we figure out, how winnow them down, and there's expertise out there to help you with that as well if we don't have it built into the group.
I chair the Kansas State Investment Committee, and each of the universities have a prescribed Ohio Revised Code section they have to invest under. Do we have a similar? Okay.
There is nothing, I repeat, nothing in the Ohio Revised Code about this entity. And as soon as somebody tries to put something in there, then, basically your effort to be an independent corporation goes away. So, no. There are rules for how nonprofits can invest. They are more generous than the state investment. I understand, again, the Water Development Authority, borrowed trillions of dollars. I understand the state investment limitations. Nonprofits are governed generally, not this specific nonprofit, but all 501c3s are governed by the prudent investment standards under the Uniform Funds Management. There's a model act. Ohio has adopted most of it. And certainly once the committee is structured, we can send you that. One of the things about your investment advisor that you hire, they're going to have to understand the rules of MIFA and what prudent investment is. It means, to just make it really simple, we're not buying penny stocks and probably not a lot of hedge funds. You have to invest this money because truth is, when you are the director of a 501c3, this one or any other one, you are a trustee. You essentially hold the property, whether it's $1 million or 3 bad computers. You hold that property in trust for the benefit of the intended beneficiaries of the mission and to some extent the public as a whole. That is basic nonprofit law. So that's it's part of your fiduciary responsibility. So you can't gamble essentially with that money. But there are plenty there's plenty of advice out there on how nonprofits can invest. And so we can send out I can send out the MIFA chapter if one wants to get over insomnia. It's not hard reading really, but it's not all that much guidance either.
And if folks are comfortable with this approach, I can work with the team. We could identify some of those first handful of subcommittees that seem to be most urgent, and I could poll each of you as members to see what kind of your top 2 or 3 interests are, so we could fill those committees immediately, if that seems like a good approach to you all.
That would be great to have some direction from you as opposed to waiting for various of us to email or not email, so you would lead us.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So those are the top, I want you to go through the checklist on your own time, so to speak, and get a sense of all of the chores that are in front of you, and they'll come in a certain order. But these are the key ones we need to start contemplating now.
And then Chris, I'm sorry, you may have had your hand raised for a little bit and I missed that, and I promised I wouldn't do that. So if you wanted to unmute, if we're still in the right area for your question, I'm sorry.
Yes, well, first, I just raised it, so you're doing great. This is more of a statement, Amy. You know that I've been talking about inclusion as it relates to how these dollars are invested from top to bottom. And so we've been meeting, as you know, I think this might be my 3rd or 4th meeting, but this is a much broader group, and I just want to state that publicly to the group. I'm a licensed financial planner. It's what I do full time for almost 30 years. And I want to make sure that as we think about investing these dollars, that inclusion is top of mind. A lot of communities have been impacted disproportionately by this opioid crisis, And I think all communities should benefit as these dollars are being invested. And so as we look at the investment advisor, as we look at how these dollars are invested in whatever asset classes, which firms are selected, which consultants we hire, I'm going to continue to have this drumbeat, looking for women, looking for Latinos, looking for African Americans, looking for Asians. There are lots of professionals across this country and this state that have tremendous skill sets and should all be looked at and included in a very diverse way. This is a lot of money. I have no idea what that fee structure is going to look like, but it's important that it's top of mind for our team here for One Ohio. And I just want to make that statement as we move forward and look at those dollars. Thank you.
And Chris, thank you. I will say I think that there needs to be an inclusion policy, not just for the financial piece, but overall. We didn't put it on the sort of immediate list, but I think, as I said, there'll be other policies that we'll come up with and that you'll come up with, and we had already discussed an inclusion policy. We aren't the people to, quite frankly, to draft it or put it in front of you today. So it wasn't out of our thinking. It just wasn't something that we were prepared to put in front of anybody today. But you're absolutely right on that subject. The other thing that ties into that and this is kind of where as much where we had the inclusion discussion, is in the grant making, because soon upon your table is going to be the need to have a grant making process. It's going to come as a surprise to the regions, I think, that they're actually going to have to apply even for the money that is earmarked for your regions, because you wanted a 501c3 grant, and what you've got is a grant-making foundation, so it has to make sure that the requests that come in for the money are consistent with the purposes that were set forth in the MOU and therefore are in the articles. So there'll be a grant application process. And I think that's where we had our diversity and inclusion conversation. We probably should have had it, in a lot of other places as well, but it was just like, okay, as we're looking at this, how do we build this in? So that's, and we've got an associate who's looking at, grant application samples and procedures, so we can hopefully at the right time put in front of some committee. And you can have people on your committee who are not directors. You don't want the committee made up entirely of non-directors, but you certainly can reach out and bring in the expertise that you can. And again, this is why it's important to begin staffing, so that you'll have somebody on staff who can work on this whole grant process. Because I think we all understand that once the money hits that bank account that's going to have that EIN in it, people are going to want it. And so they need to be knowing what the process is, and there needs to be, criteria for that. So, and thanks, Chris, for reminding me to include that in the conversation, because we've had a bunch of that conversation at the office. Did I forget anything else? 'Cause
I think
clearly forget it.
just, the code of regulations as well will have, per the MOU, some of the processes of like overarching guidelines for development of the policies related to grant making, related to the committees. So some of that broader framework will be in place under the code of regulations. And then you have the policies that will kind of fill in and provide that additional detail.
So, any other questions about this at this point? that you think could be your answer here? Okay.
So is Benish then going to take action to appoint the directors that are here?
Well, that's why we were really interested to find out how you got selected, because under the terms of the MOU, it says each region shall select. we are actually debating, and that's one of the things that you'll see in the Code of Regulations, is does this body have to somehow approve those directors? There is Ohio statute which suggests that is the answer. But there are nonprofits that have alternative ways of getting people at the table. So we had a discussion about that last week. The clearest way in terms of if you read the specific language of the statute would be to have everybody approved by this body. I'm not sure politically how that goes down, so we're very sensitive to how that works, because the regions are selecting these people. And yet, we don't have regions as members, and for a whole variety of legal reasons, you don't want to do that. I'm very blunt. If you haven't noticed, I am. We're thinking about that, and we appreciate anybody who wants to weigh in on that subject, either publicly or privately. Feel free to do that, because we're trying to figure that out.
What, as the incorporator?
As the incorporator, we could do that for this group.
Not you, but Benish.
Yeah, we could do that for this group. What he's saying is the incorporator, which is us, I signed the paperwork for the incorporation. We get to a point, if we choose the initial directors, and we could adopt the code if we wanted to. And so we could do that and kind of, sprinkle you all, but that doesn't answer the question on down the road.
Well, but then that would be addressed in the Code of Regulations.
Yeah,
How
you have to
do
figure out, and it goes
directors
back
are
to this,
appointed.
same question of whether the directors have to somehow be elected by this body as they change. But we can certainly take formal action on our end to make you all directors. I'd like to do it kind of all at once.
Still have a few outstanding appointments for the regions.
And then we can send you all a nice letter and say, as incorporators, we're pleased that you've agreed to serve. Happy to do that. But like I said, the real question is what happens after that. Y'all showed up, so I'm happy to say that you're the initial directors. So are there any other, this is a lot of work. And we don't want to scare anybody off, but it sort of is what it is. And when you look through the checklist, you'll see sort of the other things, and you'll have a sense of the order in which they need to be done.
From a timing perspective, when do we need to have everything in place so that when the funds are available, we're ready?
Well, that's a good question. Sean?
Well, there's something in the code, or in the MOU related to 90 days following receipt of funds, but I guess the receipt of funds might be.
Yeah, I don't have a date certain by which we'll have.
Do we know when any funds are going to be received?
Sean Buskin is with the AG's office.
Yeah, right. I should introduce myself. I'm the director of outside counsel for the AG, and I was part of the negotiation team for this settlement. So, no, we don't know exactly when. We're still working with Gallucci and Rice and Jay and the team of private counsel to try to figure that out. But the first payment will be somewhere around $34 million, and our office is going to process that, just the first payment, but then every subsequent one will happen through this system, through the foundation. $34 million though, but I don't have a date.
It's $34 million, that's the full amount, so we'll receive the 55%, which will be the 18-ish million, is that right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's broken down. There's $3.8 million in fees out of that first $34 million.
Over 18 years, is that all?
That's over, yeah, that's the first payment, and then there'll be many to come over 18 years.
In addition.
Yeah, yeah, because it's a total of 804 million, I think.
I think it's 808.
808.
Yeah.
Yeah, 808 over 18 years.
Over 18 years.
But it could be more, right?
Yeah, we expect that the foundation will be the recipient of future settlement dollars, perhaps as well.
Yes, so we're still negotiating with manufacturers right now. And potentially 183 million is what we're working towards. We don't have a trial. The reason this got settled is we had a trial.
So, that's what we know about the money and the timeline. I mean, I wish I had specific answers to all your questions, but you know, I don't, obviously. So, are there any other sort of questions, random or otherwise, about the timeline and the schedule? Because the next thing we need to do, we need some provisional officers, because we have to tell the IRS who the officers are. The mandatory officers by state law for a nonprofit corporation are a chair or president, a secretary, and a treasurer. And one person can have more than one office, but they can't have all three. The service frowns on that as well. So how you want to get to that, we're a bit of ways from actually getting the application filed, obviously. So we have some time, but it won't be filed without us being able not only to list all the names of the directors and where they are, what their addresses are and all that kind of stuff, but we have to designate the officers in one of the columns. So if anybody wants to volunteer, feel free.
Marnie, I'll continue to serve as secretary if you guys want me to.
Excellent. I have one officer. Going, gone. Any others?
I'll volunteer for whatever you need.
Okay, then.
As well, so whatever you need.
Okay, so we'll have a conversation. I mean, what's up is treasurer and president. So you have a specific, or chair, I think it's probably the better title, working title. So, either of you have a preference? Does anybody want to compete for these provisional positions? Anybody have an objection to the people who have volunteered?
Well, and I want to make sure those that are on virtually don't get left out by
Yes,
default of
exactly.
being virtual. So if, feel free to, Chris, your hand's still up. Is that
We
from
volunteer.
previous or, okay, I'll make sure.
Is he volunteering? He did say financial in his bio, right?
Take this down or flip a coin, right?
Good work.
I can't see.
What region are you from? Sorry.
13.
13, okay, thanks.
That's why I'm like, oh, I can't see it.
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13.
Well, that was quick. So, questions? Any other, on any reasonably related topic? Everybody's brain dead at this point. Well,
What kind of rhythm of meetings do we anticipate now?
So I sent an email, like I said, in my flurry of emails that you all got to know my name really quickly if you didn't know it yet, to pull for the next meeting in June. So there's, I think, 4 dates up for consideration. So if you can respond to that, we'll confirm that date this week. And then I don't know from you all, I mean, it's probably a monthly cadence at first and then potentially subcommittee meetings in between.
The executive, well, usually a foundation, especially of this size board, would have an executive committee. So, they can meet in between, definitely delegate tasks to the committees and subcommittees. I think right now in the draft code, it's a quarterly meeting, but definitely I think that we're likely to need you to meet more frequently than that as we get through all of this stuff.
And at what point do we need to worry about quorum?
About
Quorum.
quorum, that was one of the issues with getting the first group together. We do have to have quorum to take action, and a quorum is 18.
But then it has additional specifications within that 18.
Yes.
So you have to have representation from each of the 4 classes. So from the statewide appointments, from local governments, from the metro and the non-metropolitan regions.
And we can meet
And
virtually.
legislators.
We can meet virtually. And we can do this with partial virtual so that we can get our quorum and get people participating.
And Judy, I see you have a question.
Yeah, just real quick. Yeah, Judy Dodge, Montgomery County. I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear the wonderful volunteers who said they would be, I believe it was President, Secretary, and Treasurer, and I didn't catch their names, and I'm trying to take good notes.
We have Dr. Roizen, rhymes with poison.
Yeah.
Larry Kidd, and I don't have my glasses on, but yeah.
Catherine Whittington.
Yeah, Catherine Whittington from Region 13, lucky number 13, Region 13.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So I think we've talked about these various committees, so at the next meeting, it would be lovely if we've got some committee work done by then, and that hopefully we're in a position for the board to adopt a code of regulations, because once the board is meeting, it gets dicey for the incorporators to adopt the code, and we don't want to do that. This has to be something you live with, and it's your operating rules. So my goal would be for the next full meeting that the Code of Regulations / Bylaws Committee has done their work, and then there's a board discussion and hopefully adoption. Understanding it's something that can always be changed. I mean, it's not written in stone. But
Is that when we would then ratify all past actions by the incorporators by motion?
you can certainly do that, yes.
So yeah, this week I will follow up with everyone. We'll confirm the next meeting date that's in June. I will send the list of those committees / subcommittees that we've talked about so folks can let us know where your interests and expertise is. And then I don't know if it will be yet this week or once Holly is ready, we'll follow up quickly with the Code of Regulations so that you have that document to really review.
Checking to see if our colleagues.
If they have anything, yes.
But I don't.
Well, and while you're looking, I did want to just reiterate and publicly recognize the County Commissioners Association, the Ohio Mayor's Alliance, the Ohio Municipal League, and also the Ohio Township Association. I know a few of the folks joined the meeting today, and they've just been really instrumental in the partnership, and I know working with you all in providing some informal guidance and helping your regions get organized. So I just wanted to publicly thank them on behalf of the governor. So thank you.
That's all we have.
I think we're done.
Is there?
I did get some additional information. We anticipate the money late June, early July.
Okay, so now you have.
Expediency.
Yeah.
So we have
And you know, once the word is out that the money's rolling in, people are gonna have expectations, so.
And can I just put in a plug for if any of the regions need outside counsel, that offer still stands. We have, of all the regions, we only have 5 that have taken us up on that offer. And that's fine, some of you were able to do this just fine on your own. That's great, but if any of you are having trouble standing up these entities or need outside counsel, we're willing to pay for that to get it appointed.
We have a draft, like a model code of regs as well, if a region wanted to take a look at that and use it as you wish. We're happy to supply that.
Does anyone want to do a ceremonial adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? I always wonder what happens if people don't adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
Really?
And thank you, everybody who was on. virtually.
I would be happy to help.
Thank you.
18 and 19.
Color registered
Yes.
volunteers